I'm Lee Cowan, and this is Here Comes the Sun, a closer look at some of the people, places, and things we bring you every weekend on Sunday morning. Sandy Duncan was a capital E entertainer of the 70s, appearing in commercials, variety shows, even cartoons. But as Rocca shows us, it was her role as Peter Pan that just might be her most memorable.
She wore this costume, she says, 554 times.
I felt joy every time I did this. I don't think I had a bad show.
She's not the bragging type, but you can still crow.
I can still crow. Dance, not so much. Pretty close.
In fact,
pretty close.
She's still kicking.
I think I let my You're taller, your legs are longer.
Yeah, that's why.
Now I'm aggravated. Okay, cut.
More exclusive excerpts from their conversation are coming up a little later in the show.
How did it feel being up in the air?
Great. Yeah, it did have to catch up. I'd fly into the wings and push off the light poles. I mean, I was that daredevil and loved it so much.
And really daredevil. I mean, you were coming out to almost to the balcony, basically, right?
Yeah.
Way out into the house.
Way out.
And was that you saying, no, I want to go farther, I want to go farther?
Well, I pushed a bit. I mean, they were completely professionals who knew what they were doing, but I go, you can push it a little. I can disappear into the wings would be nice, and then swing back so that you lose me for a moment.
It must have been exhilarating.
It was exhilarating.
Then Connor Knighton brings us the unlikely trend of libraries becoming bustling social hubs of activities and technology. And no more shushing.
I tell you what I'm not seeing here. I'm not seeing a ton of books.
Yeah, no. We have 3D machines, we have robotics, we have 3D pens.
While there are still plenty of books, the redesign allowed the staff to rethink how they were displayed.
It was more about the engagement, how we wanted our public to engage within the library. And it wasn't at the shelves. It wasn't just grabbing a book and then leaving. We wanted them to stay.
Across the country, library attendance has declined 21% from 2009 to 2019. But borrowing has actually increased. It's just moved online, as collections have shifted from physical to digital material. That's caused libraries to shift their thinking in terms of what might bring people through the doors.
That's all coming up right here on Here Comes the Sun. She was the face of several 70s comedies, like Funny Face. She also danced with the Muppets, she voiced herself in Scooby-Doo, and of course starred as Peter Pan, getting a couple of Tony and Emmy nominations along the way. Here's Rocca with Sandy Duncan.
Now won't you tell me what's a nice girl like me?
I mean this is high praise. You were kind of made for the Muppets.
I was.
Right? I mean...
I related more to them than a lot of actors I've ever worked with.
I just love doing laughing. It sure beats sitting at home watching it.
In the 1970s, Sandy Duncan was everywhere, starring in family comedies like The $1 Million Duck.
When the dog barks, the duck lays an egg. I don't know why.
Well, that's not the way my mother explained it to me.
Oh, Kizzy, you needn't be afraid. You keep my secrets and I'll keep yours.
Earning an Emmy nomination for her performance in Roots.
I'll protect you, Kizzy. I'll always protect you. It can't be. It is.
Sandy Duncan.
Help! Somebody help me.
Teaming up with those meddling kids of Scooby-Doo.
Sandy Duncan, glamorous Hollywood star.
And during commercial breaks, hawking a certain snack food.
Eating wheat thins, one after the other.
Though it turns out it's a rival cracker she now prefers.
I love Triscuits.
Is this an exclusive?
Yes, this is an exclusive.
But for many, Sandy Duncan is suspended in time as the boy who wouldn't grow up, dazzling audiences in the 1979 revival of Peter Pan. She wore this costume, she says, 554 times.
I felt joy every time I did this. I don't think I had a bad show.
She's not the bragging type, but
you can still crow.
I can still crow. Dance, not so much. Pretty close.
In fact,
pretty close.
She's still kicking.
Stand a little
I
bit
think I
higher.
let my
You're
neck go.
taller. Your legs are longer.
Yeah, that's why. That's
now I'm
why.
aggravated. Okay, cut.
The dancing began when Sandy Duncan was a kid in New London, Texas.
It's a teensy oil town, and that's where I was born and went till first grade. And literally is the VFW hall, a grocery store, a drugstore, the bank, and then a church and a church and a church and a church and a church, and then you're out of town.
That's where Sandy danced in her first recital when she was just 5 years old.
I didn't have the lead part. Nana Kay did. We were just sort of like the backup girls that would go, "That's right, Nana Kay, that's right."
In third grade, she moved to the big city of Tyler, Texas, the rose capital of America, and naturally a place with lots of parades.
We had some ugly queens, I'll tell you, because it's whose daddy had the most money.
Sandy, however, had the most talent. And when she was 19, she headed to New York.
And I moved into this place called the Rehearsal Club, which was just for young women. It was $32 a week. I started getting work right away, which is lucky because it's not always the case. And also, I couldn't audition, never could, still can't. I stink.
She auditioned well enough, though, to book a series of commercials for United California Bank.
I've had a real good month. Yes, sir, no complaints. You don't hear me complaining.
That got her noticed for her quirky sense of humor.
The impression of you as being perpetually cheerful, did that ever irritate you?
Yes, of course it did, because it's far from the truth. Don will tell you that.
Dawn is dancer and choreographer Dawn Correa,
That's pretty.
Duncan's husband of 42 years. They have 2 sons and live in Connecticut.
Is there singing and dancing that goes on in this house?
I grab her occasionally and she goes, "Get away from me."
We tried to do a jump about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I said, let's just see if we can jump in the air. Well, it wasn't so easy, but
It was okay getting up, but then when you land, your whole body just shakes.
What did it feel like to dance with each other?
you just knew you were never going to fall. You were never going to be dropped. There's a thing of us doing at the Palace, Irene and Vernon Castle, and we had to do these really incredibly fast turns. He's just sure.
She's a very strong woman. So she has been through a lot. It's made her stronger and stronger. And, you know, she keeps saying, "Oh, I can't do this, I can't do that." Well, she can.
Duncan's resilience was proven long ago. Back when she was 24, she was cast in her own sitcom on CBS. Funny Face was a hit, but 3 months before wrapping the first season, Duncan just knew something was wrong.
And I started to get these hideous headaches that I could barely function. And then my eyes started getting, like I had Vaseline over one of my eyes. And they kept saying it was nerves because it's my first series. And I kept going, no, I'm hyper, but I'm not nervous.
One doctor recommended sleep.
I thought they're going to give me a shot and I'm never going to wake up.
And so she visited more doctors.
Of course, there's no CAT scan and no MRI.
Right.
They didn't exist. And they found it in the surgery that there was this big tumor that was attached to the orbit of my eye. They severed the optic nerve, and that's why I have no vision.
No vision at all in her left eye.
And forgive me if this is too graphic, but how did they even get in there?
They saw the top of my head off. I have holes and scars all over the place, and then they stapled it back on. I had to wear a wig for almost a year. And everyone thinks that I lost my eye, and I go, no, I'm sorry, I didn't. You know, no, it's not a prosthetic.
As she made clear in the program for a 2008 production of No No Nanette, Sandy Duncan does not have a glass eye. But she did lose her depth perception.
It interferes with a lot of things. Just picking up this glass, even yet, and that was what, God knows how many years ago.
50 years ago.
50 years ago. Thanks, Mo. And I have to really concentrate to get the glass or to pour something into something. You know, my biggest problem is my self-consciousness about another person's comfort.
It's easy to forget that Duncan's greatest triumph happened after her brain tumor. In his review of Peter Pan, New York Times theater critic Walter Kerr described how the wires seemed to disappear when Duncan took flight. She just lets go of gravity, he wrote, gracefully and gleefully, and lets the mechanical equipment catch up as best it can.
That joy and passion, it seems like, has driven you a lot.
I'm not sure what you were meaning about wires. What?
Oh, he said, I was rereading the New York
But I
Times
mean, what
review.
wires?
Oh. All right, good. Anyway.
More from Mo Rocca and Sandy Duncan coming up in just a few minutes. But first, the dim halls and dulcet tones of the library reimagined. If we told you there was innovation happening in places like Charleston and Austin and Seattle, you might think startups or farm-to-table restaurants or microbreweries. But Connor Knighton found something else, a renaissance of the once humble library.
On a recent Monday morning, the citizens of Kanawha County, West Virginia, came to check out a new chapter in the life of an old institution.
These are no longer warehouses of books. These are marketplaces of ideas. This is a community's living room.
After more than 2 years and $32 million in renovations, downtown Charleston's public library reopened to the public. Inside, visitors discovered a brand new cafe, a tool lending library, an idea lab full of the latest technology. There was an excitement you could see and hear, which is exactly what the librarians were hoping for.
Librarians from time immemorial,
Are we beyond the age of shushing?
We're beyond the age of that, yeah.
Erica Connolly is the director of the Kanawha County Library. From podcasting booths to computerized sewing machines to augmented reality screens, the facility has been updated for the modern age.
Well, so I tell you what I'm not seeing here. I'm not seeing a ton of books.
Yeah, no. We have 3D machines, we have robotics, we have 3D pens.
While there are still plenty of books, the redesign allowed the staff to rethink how they were displayed.
It was more about the engagement, how we wanted our public to engage within the library. And it wasn't at the shelves. It wasn't just grabbing a book and then leaving. We wanted them to stay.
Across the country, library attendance has declined at 21% from 2009 to 2019. But borrowing has actually increased. It's just moved online, as collections have shifted from physical to digital material. That's caused libraries to shift their thinking in terms of what might bring people through the doors.
Good morning, welcome. Good morning, welcome.
Austin Public Library Director Roosevelt Weeks begins each day greeting patrons as they enter the downtown branch.
Hey, boss, what's going on, man?
The 200,000 square foot building fills up fast.
I mean, you've been open for all of 9 minutes at this point, and it's bustling already.
It's always like that.
People come to Austin's library to play board games, video games, games of giant chess. Alongside the actual books, there are Chromebooks and MacBooks to check out. The teen area hosts jam sessions featuring the library's collection of guitars.
What do you think is the most unexpected physical item that you can check out at the library?
Seeds.
Seeds?
Yes, if you want to plant a garden, we have seeds that you can check out.
So that's not something you have to return, right? There's not late fees on seeds.
The return is, come show us what you got from your garden.
When Austin's Central Library opened in 2017, it instantly became a community hub. Visitation increased in subsequent years.
Were you here on opening day?
Oh gosh, I was here. It was one of the most glorious days of my life. You know, we had 17,000 people waiting to get into this building.
The building itself is part of the draw. Bright and open, full of spaces to lounge and meet, modern libraries are attempting to meet the needs of today while staying flexible for the future.
More and more of these libraries are being built so that they have very open floor plans. And I think part of that is that vision of long term. We don't know what the next thing might be.
Miguel Figueroa is the former director of the Center for the Future of Libraries.
It's really easy to think about the future as exclusively technological, and I think a lot of libraries are keeping pace with that. At the same time, I think we're starting to see that there's a really great future for these institutions as place. The value of having an open public place in your city, in your neighborhood.
In 2009, the city of San Francisco became the first in the country to hire a full-time social worker for its main library. Dozens of cities across the country have followed suit.
A lot of the social safety nets have been underfunded or removed. And unfortunately, that often means that there's a crunch on other public institutions like public libraries. They are very trusted institutions, and people feel welcome within them.
People like Andrew Constantino, who, for a time, was a daily visitor to the downtown Seattle library.
The library is like your grandmother's house. If you're homeless or living in poverty, that's exactly what it's like. When you are allowed to be at the library, whereas, if you're homeless, you're not allowed to be many places.
Years ago, Constantino was living on the Seattle streets and in shelters. The library was his refuge, a place to get out of the rain and get back on his feet.
You mentioned the importance of feeling welcome here. What was it like to not feel welcome elsewhere?
Oh, it sucks. It's like everywhere in our society, you have to buy access. If I want to use your bathroom, I have to buy a soda pop.
Public libraries are public, a place where everyone can come together. In one room, recent immigrants practice English. In another,
the upper left-hand corner of your
first-time computer users learn how to navigate the internet. The internet, an always-on, limitless hub of information, didn't replace libraries. It may have made them more essential.
The side effects of some of the technologies where we do become so focused in on online information or online discourse that we forget how to connect with other people. Libraries retrain you, I think, to be a member of a public, to be part of the civic discourse.
While COVID made those connections challenging, most libraries closed during the height of the pandemic, there's been a recent slew of grand openings. Newly renovated libraries have popped up everywhere from Flint, Michigan to Fayetteville, Arkansas, from Spokane, Washington to Washington, D.C.
I really think that far from any idea that some people might have that the library is somehow obsolescent, or irrelevant, it's actually the opposite. I think that our society as a whole needs more institutions and public areas that are like the library. It's much more a model for how we should treat other people than just an artifact of the past.
I love the work. I just love the work, and I always have.
After the break, more with Sandy Duncan. Stay with us. Welcome back. As promised, here's more from Sandy Duncan, who flew into our hearts 40 years ago as the boy who never grows up in Peter Pan.
I do have enormous joy on stage. It's not about the schmoozing and the being seen at the right place. I don't even care about any of that. In fact, it makes me uncomfortable. I will avoid a red carpet and walk around the edge and scooch in. I don't like it. I love the work. I just love the work, and I always have. I just love that whole part of it. And it is joyful for me. The connection you have with an audience, if you can establish that in a role, is remarkable.
How did it feel being up in the air?
Great. Yeah. It did have to catch up. I'd fly into the wings and push off the light poles. I mean, I was that daredevil and loved it so much.
And really daredevil. I mean, you were coming out to almost to the balcony, basically, right?
Yeah.
Way out into the house.
Way out.
And was that you saying, no, I want to go farther, I want to go farther?
Well, I pushed a bit. I mean, they were completely professionals who knew what they were doing, but I go, you can push it a little. I can disappear into the wings would be nice, and then swing back so that you lose me for a moment.
It must have been exhilarating.
It was exhilarating.
Right? In 1971, you get this sitcom built around you, great time slot. It was called Funny Face. And how far into the first season did you start feeling
I would
pain?
say we were not even half, 3 months or so before finishing. So I was seeing doctors for that whole time. I'd leave the set at lunch and go to another doctor.
Jeez. When you woke up from the operation, is that when you realized that you no longer had vision in your left eye?
Yes, but they kept thinking, I don't know why maybe they're just trying to give me hope, looking back on it, but they kept acting as if there might be a return of vision, and of course there never could be.
Was your mother there when you woke up to kind of break the news?
My mother and dad, I remember coming out of it and I was amazed because I was sure the night before this surgery that I was going to die, pretty committed to it. I was calm about it, that, people die at all ages, and that's what it is. And I'm sitting there about to have my whole head shaved for the surgery, and in walks this vision, swirling head. It was Lucille Ball.
Right, just as you're prepping for surgery.
Yes.
Your head is getting shaved.
And she, right before they were coming in to do that, and she went out in the hallway. She said, "I'll be right back." And she took my dad aside, and she said, "You got somebody to look after that gas station?" And my dad said, yes, I do. Thank you. Because we'll get somebody, to take care of that for you if you have to be here and da-da-da-da-da. And then she came back in my room and sat down, and she said, and she had a little Limoges box. And she said, "Now I want you to take this. I want you to put all your pain in there."
Gosh, wow. Do you still have that box?
I think I do.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I think that the 1970s were a heyday of TV variety shows, and you got to do a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
Which of the appearances that spring to mind?
Yeah, you're right. Everybody did a lot of those. I had a couple of my own, and I liked the ones I did more with other people. Oh, the one that I loved the most was a tribute to Richard Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
And I met my husband of 41 years on that show, and we didn't get together then. We danced together for the next 10 years or so, on and off. If I were doing something, they'd go, "Let's get Don Correa," And I was going, as we went on, "Oh yeah, let's get Don Correa." And then I thought, he's cute. He's really cute.
He stayed with you.
Yes.
That memory of it. It did 10 cents a dance.
That's correct.
It's a great number. And he's dancing in there with you, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And lifting me and throwing me around. And I was just about getting a divorce during that period.
Mm-hmm.
So he got cuter and cuter. And we ended up doing a nightclub act for Vegas soon after that. And he was one of the choreographer said, "Let's see if we can get Don Correa." And I said, "Oh, he's not going to do it. He works all the time."
Right.
And he did do it. I thought, let's see. And one day in rehearsal, we just started, and he got a call, and we were on a break, and he came back, and he said, "It's Liza Minnelli's. They want me to do her act." And I'm like, oh. There it goes, the romance and the show too. And he didn't leave.
Right. He stayed.
He stayed.
Yeah, exactly. That's when you knew.
That's right.
Right?
Yes.
I'm Lee Cowan. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you here next time on Here Comes the Sun.